Hey everyone, so this video is going to be focused on the celebration of Juneteenth, the date of June 19th. Of course, within my videos, I always like to do a compare and contrast things to leave your mind open with subjective and objective point of views. Because of the world that I'm living in, I'm striving to break free, to break the chains of targeting. So I always like to compare things that went from the past to the present and why celebrating Juneteenth is a time for hope, a time to bring forth celebration, but it's not a time to stop there. It's time to keep pushing for us to be recognized about equality and for us to push for all of us to have the rights to be classified as free. Okay, so those of you that don't know what Juneteenth is, people were enslaved, as you know. However, they was freed after the Civil War. Unfortunately, some places did not accept the fact that they wanted to release the enslaved. For example, Texas. Texas still kept people enslaved. Therefore, there was people coming from other states moving to Texas just so they can have the right to keep people enslaved. So in 1865, on June 19, slaves in Texas were told they were finally free. And you know what? And to be honest, you may ask yourself, free from what? Because there still was laws implemented to keep them in bondage. Okay? But we must recognize where they did come from, where we all came from, so that we can continue to strive not to go back. Because with the current chain of events, it seems like the world is trying to bring back enslaved tactics. For an example, a lot of things that you and I go through as targets is the same tactic that those had to go through, but it's re-evolved to something totally different, but it has the same effect mentally and sometimes physically against us. So therefore, as of now, Juneteenth is now classified as a federal holiday, but in my opinion, we should not stop there and get happy and celebrate it as an all-round chain of freedom. Okay, so far in my mind, just to put it out there, we have to make things known of what's going on around us so that we can bring forth the change just like these people did. Yes, it took them decades and decades, but I'd rather something take decades than it not to be taking place at all. And I say this because, in my opinion, those who were enslaved back then has similar experience as those of us, like I said, who are a target, which is why I say slavery must come to an end. Okay? But you know what? It's not up to me to make that opinion. I want you to have your own point of view and you be the judge. I'm going to give you some examples of what an enslaved man and woman went through, and then you be the judge and see if that's comparisons to some of the tactics that we are going through. And it's not based off of race currently, it's based off just people that are being outspoken or choosing to have free will. They are being oppressed just like the men and women who were being enslaved, African Americans. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the examples that enslaved people went through. Enslaved men and women were not allowed to defend themselves without crucial punishment. They did not have any legal standing to back them up in the court system or a court of law to stand by their side when wrong tactics was placed against them. They could not even enter into ownership of their own properties. There was tactics placed against them like redlining, like withholding their wealth so that they would not be able to have ownership of properties, cars, or pretty much businesses. Some slaves felt they had to kill themselves in order to escape the brutal reality of life. And the only thing they had to look forward to help them, encourage them, to motivate them to keep going was religion. Religion played a big role in many slaves' life. And once again, just like us, you be the judge. We depend on religion to keep us going, to keep us moving forward. Slavery, so slaves formed their own congregation. Well, we have our own congregation, our own community of TIs. Okay, I can keep going and going. Okay, but you be the judge, like I said. And also, due to these tactics, okay, a lot of these things do feel and sound familiar to me. But once again, I want to keep throwing out more things, right? So that you guys can put it upon your head so that you can push the fight and not give up, okay? Just to encourage you to not go backwards, to let's strive to move forward, okay? Because a lot of slaves were separated from their families by their owners, separated them so that they will not be unified. Okay, think about that. Different tactics, but the same situation, keeping you away from your family. Okay, and I've also, when they was classified as being free, you and I are classified as being free, they implemented the Jim Crow laws, which still kept them enslaved. Okay, many industries wouldn't hire black people. They would exclude them. Acts of violence was conducted against the blacks to keep them in their place or to make sure they stay in line. And under the Jim Crow laws, the blacks were kept to be often more poor. Their wealth was not able to grow or expand. And just like targets, the number of things that they use to attack us with is psychological, and of course, our health and finances. Why? Because these things are the things that's going to keep us always in bondage, especially your wealth being attacked. With less wealth, we can't obtain ownership, we can't obtain homes, we even might lack the ability to gain a higher education, which creates a symptomatic, which creates challenges. Okay, and our society is moving from slavery to Jim Crow to targeting. This is why we can't fully celebrate to the point of, okay, this is where it stops. We got to celebrate and say one hump, we moved over one hill, now it's time to get over another hill and keep moving forward, because a change still has to come. Even decades after decades, we can't give up. It's still a change. We're not all the way done yet. And that's no way we can compare ourselves to what people went through in slavery. We can't take away the pain and suffering that they've been through at all. That's no comparison to what they had to go through in order to maintain a life, just to live. But there is still work that needs to be done. Okay? We got to start with ourselves, especially within our black community. We got to do better. We got to know better so we can do better. We got to strive to push harder, to educate ourselves, to uphold our business ethics, so that when we are supplying the needs to the customer service is at a better, because at this time, unfortunately, I have a lot of bad experience during customer service. This is not to put any African businesses down, because it's not African all. It's not all. It's majority though. And sometimes the majority wins and creates a default against those that are trying to do right. We got to learn how to stop killing each other. Why look back at the things that they went through, and then we are still being the ones that are hating each other the most with gun and gang violence? It has to be put to an end, because we can't protest for one to stop killing and we're killing too. It's a learned behavior, because we was born into aggression, we was born into hate, we was born into abuse, that the same tactics that was used against us. We have not learned how to break the chain and take that away from our family lives. For an example, when slaves would act out or not do as they told, what happened? They will get whipped. African Americans, when your kids act, I can't say when our kids act out of character, what do? They get whipped. Not talked to, not explained, not loved, not hugged, get hit, get punished for not knowing how to do something right or yelled at. Why? Because those are the same tactics that started when we was born into slavery. We are taking it to from generation to generation. Something has to stop, something has to give. We have to try to do better. We're not saying don't spank our kids. We're saying talk to them, teach them, love on them, because we was born into hate. So unfortunately, a lot of us hate each other. We are placed against each other. So it's time for a change so we can do better and know better. So the point of this video is to celebrate Juneteenth, because those that were enslaved, that was a big accomplishment, a big change in their life. It's not to take away from the fact that they've been through something, they made it through. It's just to encourage us that don't stop there, to push forward so that we can celebrate too and say, ooh, no more targeting. Ooh, we have the right to freedom of speech. We have the right to, be able to believe in what we want to believe, as long as we abide by the law and not break the law. Because we do have amendments that say you have the right to freedom of this, but when we try to act upon the freedom of speech or upon the freedom of free will, we get punished for it and we become targets. All right, that's all I wanted to talk to you guys about. I hope this didn't disappoint anybody or stray them from gaining understanding. I just wanted to create a platform where it can show barriers and biased point of views to those that don't know the insides of why some people act different or why they act the way they do. So if you ever see an African American, like, oh, they outraged, they aggression, it was a learned behavior. This was something that was learned decades and decades and decades ago. But however, the generational curse has not been broken, because it's going to take that one family member to take a stand to say, I will not yell at my child. I will not just beat my child for every little thing like we was told to do, because it's doing the same thing that we're protesting against, and we're thinking that it's the right method to use in order to discipline. That's not the only scope of disciplines that you have. Talk to you guys soon.